using Twitch to film these, and then from the Twitch website I download it and then upload it to YouTube. So it's being recorded with my phone, so the orientation, the way it registers and whatnot is weird at first with this, but it's been the best way so far I found for recording. Before, I had used a small little GoPro knockoff, and that had caused a lot of issues. Filming from the top, I had to have it in car mode. So car mode, because of the angle, only did it for 3-minute intervals. And then from there, I would have to put it all together in like a Windows editor and then upload it. And there was a lot of issues. If my computer would go to sleep or something like that, it would then disrupt the whole process, etc. So this has been the best way so far before I get myself a nice or decent camera to film with. So anyway, I'm using a piece of Stonehenge aqua paper. I'm going to paint to 8 by 10 size. So the 10 is about here, 8 is about here. So just letting some overlap so when it mats, it'll be nice and neat. So I was cleaning off my palette before I had started filming, but then I was like, let me start filming just so people could see with the butcher trays how you can utilize this and keep it, how to maintain it. So some people will clean everything off every time. Other people will leave it like super dirty and messy. And then one thing that I do is every once in a while, if I'm not using the residual paint in the middle, I'll take just a wet paper towel. This paper towel you could have used on a previous painting. And literally all you have to do is just pass it and scrub it and clean up those areas. And then you don't have to worry about wasting any paint that you had put down previously. Now, these guys, you could find them online. I got this one at Michael's, and I believe Hobby Lobby has them as well. They're with a coupon or just out the door price. It's going to be between $5 to $10. So it's an enamel tray that is kind of dipped around the sides to let it run off to the sides. And the way I set up mine is I'll go around with the idea of my earth tones and then my blues and darks. And with that, I also have it just inherently in my mind where at this point, if I mix my ultramarines, I'll get my grays, and if I mix my phthalo blue, I'll get my greens. Then I have my Paynes gray, lemon yellow for another green, and then I have my sap green for the convenience green. Anywho, so I'm just wetting the paper, letting it relax. Figured I'd just talk about that while everything was getting settled. And I feel that that kind of makes things easier on my part. It's kind of get me talking and in the mood to narrate, orate what I'm doing. So with today's painting, it's going to be just a random landscape again, so it's not going to be based off a real scene. But I had done some preliminary sketches in just a sketchbook, and I just opened it up, looked through it, saw what I wanted to work with, so I'm going to be working from one of those. Just throwing some extra paints on the palette. And let's see. I kind of want to hopefully get some more color and vibrancy in this one. A lot of the times I'll paint more on the the tonal, darker browns and grays side. Anywho, so everything's set up. I'll show you the sketchbook. It's just one of many that I just have thrown away into different spots with different notes and ideas. And what I wanted to think about was this kind of composition. I don't know how well it shows up from that distance. I'm going to stand up and take a look. And the note that I had made was the eye is going to go back and then come back in this direction, and then I have to really focus on that foreground tree to come back down. So it's a triangular compositional shape. I had done some other drawings with that same idea. So that's what I'm going to base this one on loosely. We'll see what direction it goes in. So without further ado, I'm using the medium Hake with the 8x10. It's usually easier to use the small one, but I already got started with it, so we'll keep it rolling. Now, with this raw sienna, so we're going to use that. We're going to come in with our horizon line. Scale around. So this is going to be like last time's watercolor, where I'm going to feed it in and have a source of light. And I'm going to want to have a waterway in here amongst the trees. Let's see. Pour some alizarin crimson out. Now, I use the cotton brand for this. I'm not sure the vibrancy of the other ones. So we'll see. And the alizarin crimson, this is gonna be light fast. Sorry that my phone is dinging. Let's see if I can turn that off. That is the negative of having this on my phone. I can mute it for 1 hour. Perfect. So right now I'm just kind of feeding colors in. So far, raw sienna and alizarin crimson. I had said I wanted it to be more colorful, so let's see what we get happen. Got our ultramarine. Usually I have to pour ultramarine out at the beginning of every painting. I use so much of it, but I think last painting I had leaned more on my phthalo blue, so that's probably why. You want to keep your paper flat or you'll get the puddling and the pooling. Paynes gray. Then raw sienna. Everything is still very damp. You can see how it spreads. Mix that with some ultramarine to get a gray. Now I'm just placing this into the background. This is going to give me just my way background trees. And with that, whenever you're working on those background trees, you can mix any sort of dark. I'm just pulling from the Paynes gray, ultramarine, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and then just that mix that I already had. And you'll see that these will dry very light. Just brought that down in for the reflection in there. Even though a lot of the background doesn't show through at the end of the painting, I think it's important to help me set up the scene of what I'm building. So let's see. Now, sometimes when you double clip, it's not wanting to sit flat for me today. We have a lot of color in there. Our paper's still wet. Let's mix another dark gray. We'll use burnt umber. Ultramarine blue. So we're going to get darker. I'll mix some sap green in there. A little bit greenish. So I'm going to dry this off. And while it dries, once you hit a certain stage with the drying, and I'll talk about it once it gets to that point. Okay, the paper's still damp, and whenever you have it damp, you can scrape out background trees. If you do it in an area that's too wet, it will come back into that spot, and instead of having the white, it'll look like a dark line right there, or a scar on the paper. So you want to be careful with that. Experiment with it. You can put rocks in. This is a technique that I learned from Stephen Cronin videos. He's a great demonstrator of the Hake and what people call the Ron Ranson technique. Who else does this? Probably have seen it in David Usher videos. He's a very great painter as well. Joe Menza does this in his videos. He'll scrape a lot. So I'm just giving a variation to the line back here. For background trees. And then this scraping will take form in other ways from different art books and art teachers, like Zoltan Sabo. He'll use a palette knife is what he used, I believe, to scrape, and usually for the thinner lines. So I just re-wet that area just so I could kind of pull in a little bit more. shape, rock shape. This is the way I had watercolor painted when I had first started using these approaches. I don't usually scrape as much anymore. I think, you know, you probably fall in and out of different styles and experiment with different things. But anyway, so I have that in. We're still damp, so let's dry this off. And paper's still wet some, but I'm going to start trying to bring in that for the closer part of the underbrush and closer part of the trees here. Now, this must be where I hit that point where I like my darks and my browns. So let's get some sap green. Put a little more life into it, see what happens. So I'm just using the Hake, just have some sap green on the brush. You can see the areas where it's still wet, and it's just dispersing it out. There's going to be some dark tree trunks, some light tree trunks, so we have a variety in there. Let's get a little yellow in there too, just try to brighten things up. Okay. Now, with the sketch, I haven't really held true to anything so far, but now I'm going to put in that variety of trees. We'll see what happens. I really have deviated quite a bit from my original plan. Just letting things flow. Anyway, okay, so let's dry this off again. Now we're going to put in the trees. And the shapes that I had drawn, let's do, you're gonna have to bring this darker to pop it out. Just getting some different browns mixed, some different darks, different spots. Okay, so we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. But this guy's going to sit back behind a tree in the front. I'm not going to put him in yet. Then I'm going to reseed these further back. So I'm receding on an angle through here. I'm going to have a big one right here. Then a small tree structure right there. So I'm going to put in some foliage on these guys, and I'm also going to come up and help them find their place and attach to the ground. Set little shadows for them. Go very gently with this. As they're closer, I want their foliage to be higher in the sky. They will have a little bit coming off. Right now my mind's quite in a few different spots, thinking about how I want this pattern of the silhouette to work. And I mean, I have this right in the middle, which is a big no-no, so I'm gonna have to be careful with that. Probably gonna have to put some stuff in to kind of break that up, but let's put some branches, some stuff coming from the ground around them. So this is the rigger, which is a great tool. And pretty much, if you have a Hake brush, I recommend them. They do take a little while to get used to, but they are a lot of fun. We have Facebook groups dedicated to it. The one is the Ron Ranson Disciples, or Disciples of Ron Ranson. You know, I go to the page so much, you think I would know it by now. And there's a lot of people that make videos showing this technique. But, you know, if you have a big brush, and to use another example, it's, I can't pronounce his last name. Every time I talk about him, I feel so bad that I can't figure it out. It's Rick, Surowwic. If you do Rick watercolor painting tutorials, he has just copious amounts of painting tutorials online, and he'll use a big brush, not a Hake, but he'll use a big. It'll be this brand, the Black Velvet. You use usually this like a round jumbo to start off, and then we'll come in with smaller paint brushes in different spots later on. So, you know, the concept is kind of the same from one paint just to the next, where you put the big elements in first and then put your detail in after. At least from what I remember of his videos, but it's very common with the other ones as well. Okay, so we have that. Now, let's do another dry off. Before this part gets too dry, let's turn this into kind of more of the water's edge. I'll bring down a few reflections. Okay, so Now it's time to put in the big tree on this side. Let me get these paints a little bit wetter. Where did my spray bottle go? Can anybody out there in YouTube land tell me? There you go. There we go. Now, I'll switch to the rigger. Try to get okay. So one thing that I've talked about is, with the rigger, you could get the calligraphy type strokes on it. I haven't gone all the way up with the tree yet. I want this tree to have more life and emotion rather than just going straight up. I just wet a lot of the paints again. I'm using them almost like they're straight from the tube. I almost did that like oil or gouache right there. Let's get that. Some growth, the branches coming off of it. Then try to go very vibrant foliage. I don't know if I achieved that diagonal that I really wanted. Get the triangle shape, but it's kind of there. Okay, so with this guy's foliage, it's going for that green. Use the Hake to get the texture of leaves. Now, I'm going to have to set its reflection here, which there you go. Just wet that area and just fed in that same color. Then I'll probably put some Paynes gray right around the edge, darken it. Let me, just for the sake of staying the same, we're going to use the rigger to kind of go from there to there. Then the same tools, just so you don't have to be like, oh, you have to use different things. And that's these guys, reflections or shadows passing over. then take a towel, lift out some white spots. You could also take a wet brush when it dries and do that. Whichever you prefer. I guess I'll just have to show different things different times. Now a dark. Just a little bit of brush. I'm really gonna have to wash that brush out. I got a lot of pigment in it. Anyway, just play around in here. Another thing you can use is Daniel Smith makes a paint called Buff Titanium, and Van Gogh brand just came out with a paint called Titanium Buff. Are they the same thing or the same pigment? Possibly. I want to just accentuate some spots. I like it. It's just kind of fun addition once in a while. You could also, what else can you also do? You can also mask those spots out with masking fluid and pull them off. You can use a razor blade to pick stuff off. You could use a wet brush and towel to lift. Show you the razor blade one. Okay, so almost got my thumb right there. Let's try this off, see what everything looks like. Okay, so I wanted to show you the razor blade where you take the end and kind of just pick at it, and that'll lift up the paint and some paper and leave white spots there. You can pass over areas and scrape, but I'm not going to do that. I just want to bring areas of white. And in the case that I usually use it in is the idea of wildflowers, like different groupings, and just a fun little accentuation. You could take it in the water and scrape. Get a little bit of water reflection in there. You go on the side. That's not truly dry yet, so it doesn't really work well with damp paint. I have to do one more dry off because as I was drying, something that I had mentioned earlier came to mind, and I see it now. And I think it was something that in the beginning when I started painting I left out, and now I see why it's an issue. This horizon line right here is just so, I don't know if it's just like too faded for me, or it just doesn't bring everything together. So I can put a little bit in with the rigger back here to connect. Even have that, and that's mainly water with a little bit of pigment, and it'll tie it together for me. And I could also take an element from down here to help connect from one side to the other. So you could have a, you know what, I'll do a dead log, dead branch. So we're gonna have a dead branch come across. So I'm using that Titan buff. It's coming out over and reaching. Now, while I'm doing this, I'll kind of blab for a moment. Within our communities, unfortunately, there's arguments about pure watercolor versus, I guess, not pure if you have gouache or something like that in it, or white. Yeah, I don't know if this is considered a gouache, because I did get it from the watercolor section and it's part of their watercolor line, but it obviously has some sort of white pigment in it. But at the end of the day, it really does not matter. What matters is that you are having fun and enjoying it. That you are releasing stress. You know, they'll have those decrepit logs. So I don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't use. I mean, unless it's some sort of like competition or something like that. And, you know, just realize that even though somebody says, oh, you can't do this, or you can do this, or they don't use this, or they do use that, it doesn't mean you have to. Because then we'd be all painting the same thing. All right, so I think we had one last dry off. And we're going to call it at that. So please, if you like, please like, subscribe, check out the YouTube. I think I have links to the Instagram, links to Patreon if you're interested in that. Yeah. All right. Have a great day. And I hope you learned something.